Well, hello there. So you've clicked on this video because you're looking for a tank game. And you've heard a lot of stories about the two main forces in the tank game industry, which are World of Tanks and War Thunder. But you're only willing to invest your time and potential money in one of them. So you're wondering which one is better and in which one should I invest my time and money? Well, the answer to the question is pretty complicated, and in short I can already say that it highly depends on your personal preferences. So if I sparked your interest, then feel free to watch this video all the way until the end, so I can help you to find out exactly which one is gonna be the most enjoyable for you. Or if you're only here for the end conclusion, then feel free to fast forward to this timestamp on the screen right now to jump straight to the conclusion of this video. You still here? Alright, cool. So without further ado, let's dive straight into the comparison. So at first I want to make 100% clear that both games actually aren't that similar as you would expect them to be, since in my opinion the only thing the two games have in common is that they both feature tanks in some way. So to give you a better overview of the content included in this video, I divided the video in a few different parts where I'll be talking about overall gameplay experience, different game modes, diversity and the arrangement of vehicles, the grind to the top, aka how hard is it, how much time does it take, etc. The influence of real world money in both games, and last but definitely not least, the conclusion of this video. So I've also included the timestamps to every part of this video in the description down below, so if you don't feel like watching the entire video, then feel free to skip ahead to the parts that seem relevant to you. So now with that all out of the way, let's just dive right into this comparison. So let's start off with the first and also the most important part, which is the overall gameplay experience that both games offer, and mainly the differences in between them. Starting with the most apparent one, which is the way you kill enemy vehicles in both games, since World of Tanks uses an HP system, while War Thunder uses a so-called knockout system. What does this mean? Well, if you want to destroy a vehicle in World of Tanks, you need to drain all of the vehicle's hit points in order to take it out of the game. And how fast you can do this is mainly dependent on the amount of hit points that the vehicle has that you're shooting at, your average damage and your average reload time, and of course the pen and if you hit your shots or not, but since this is in case for both games, I am not accounting for this. So in War Thunder, on the other hand, vehicles don't have a HP pool. So what does this mean? Well, in order to destroy a vehicle in War Thunder, you basically either have to break an enemy's hull, detonate its ammo rack, or kill all of the enemy crew members either by shell damage or by setting the vehicle on fire for long enough, which can be quite challenging since you kinda have to know where you're shooting your targets. This also means that if you're shooting your enemy in War Thunder in the commander's hatch time after time, like you would most likely do in World of Tanks, you'll pretty much never be able to kill the entire tank, simply because you're not critically damaging the vehicle or killing any crew members apart from maybe the commander, of course. So the easiest way to take out vehicles in War Thunder is to aim for spots where you can hit most of the crew members with a single shot, which is in most cases the side center mass of the vehicle. This is also the main reason why experienced War Thunder players can most likely kill you in one shot, because they know where to shoot your vehicle in order to take out all the crew members in one shot, thus taking you out of the game. So overall, and this pretty much counts for every aspect in both games, War Thunder takes a way more serious and realistic approach on tank combat than World of Tanks. But this does not necessarily mean that it's a bad thing for World of Tanks, because I actually do know a lot of people that actually prefer World of Tanks' HP system over War Thunder's more realistic vehicle destroy system. So now we know how to kill enemies in both games, let's dive into a bit more details here. So let me get this right out of the way. War Thunder has much more in-game features than World of Tanks. And as I said before, this is mainly because War Thunder tries to offer a much more realistic experience. But this also means that War Thunder is a much harder game to learn than World of Tanks. So let's start off simple here by first covering the main differences in both games' spotting mechanics, camo mechanics and armor mechanics. So spotting, how does it work in World of Tanks? Well, it's simple. Once an enemy vehicle enters your view range circle, it gets visible for your entire team, if the vehicle has 0% camo and isn't concealed by any bushes. But you can still shoot and hit an enemy vehicle in World of Tanks even if it isn't spotted, since the enemy tanks are always physically there. And even though you sometimes can't see them due to the tank's radio range or World of Tanks' maximum render distance. But in War Thunder, it's a little different, especially in realistic battles. Since War Thunder, unlike World of Tanks, doesn't make vehicles completely invisible when nobody of your team is spotting them. In War Thunder Realistic, it's simply only your eyes who can spot an enemy vehicle, no matter how far or how close the enemy is. Then camo rating and vehicle concealment is also quite different in both games. Since in World of Tanks, the higher your camo rating, the longer you will stay invisible for an incoming enemy. So for example, an enemy with 0% camo would become immediately visible when it enters your viewage circle, while an enemy with 30% camo would, for example, only become visible when it's 1/3 into your viewage circle. But a mechanic like this doesn't exist in War Thunder, since in War Thunder it's only, again, your eyes who can spot the enemy vehicles. But you can make yourself harder to spot by the naked eye by applying camouflage paint and putting bushes onto your vehicle in order to blend in with your environment a lot more, just like camouflage works in real life. So lastly, we have a mechanic that actually works the same in both games, which is armor and penetration. Since different shell penetration values, armor thickness, impact angle, space armor, and ricochets are implemented in the exact same way in both games, so no difference there. But what does differ and what actually can influence and differ armor penetration is the shell trajectory. Since in World of Tanks you can simply aim at your target dead center at any distance and your shell will always find its target in its vertical way. But this is not the case in War Thunder. Since in War Thunder you don't only need to adjust your aim horizontally when shooting at moving targets, but also vertically when you're shooting at targets that are further away. Of course, some guns need less adjustment than others, but overall it's actually an important thing to always keep in mind when playing War Thunder as a World of Tanks player. But that's not the only difference I noticed when firing my guns in both games, since I also noticed one huge difference right away when playing War Thunder: the absence of RNG in firing your gun. Because in World of Tanks there's always some form of RNG applied to your shots, which sometimes can really mess up even the most perfectly aimed shots. Of course, you can somewhat counter this aiming RNG by using accuracy improving consumables and equipment, but it will always remain in the game in some form.
Oh my fucking god! Can you believe it? Okay, you know what? Fuck it. I'm done. I'm gonna get some water. I'll be right back. Fuck this shit.
In War Thunder, on the other hand, there is zero RNG applied to your shot accuracy, because instead of accuracy RNG, you have the more apparent shell drop down over range, and an additional gun wobble when firing on the move that you'll need to wait for it to stabilize after stopping your tank to get a perfectly aimed shot out. And this is to kinda replicate World of Tanks' dispersion system in a little bit more realistic way, which I'm personally more of a fan of than World of Tanks' RNG aiming system, but I guess that is just a matter of taste. So with the main features and differences in overall gameplay covered now, let's do a quick speed run on other different features in between the two games. So firstly, World of Tanks has artillery, War Thunder has artillery but as a consumable and not as an actual tank type. But World of Tanks' arty is still way more annoying in my opinion.
I get shot by artillery because a KV2 on 36 hit points is way more important than, for example, a TVP or a U that's wrecking the whole enemy team. GG.
Number 2, War Thunder has deployable smoke grenades mounted on some tanks, World of Tanks hasn't. Number 3, War Thunder has playable AA vehicles, World of Tanks hasn't, but it will be pretty useless anyway in World of Tanks since there are no planes flying in the air that actually tend to shoot at you. Yeah. Number 4, War Thunder has rockets, World of Tanks hasn't. Number 5, War Thunder has usable MGs with tracer ammo. World of Tanks hasn't, but maybe in the future World of Tanks has it as well? Question mark. Number 6, War Thunder allows you to use multiple turrets and guns at once on tanks that actually have more than one turret or gun. World of Tanks doesn't, but again, World of Tanks might be implementing it in the future. Don't worry Lee, you'll get there eventually. Number 7, War Thunder has planes flying around that want to kill you, or you can hop into one of these planes and fly around yourself during a tank battle. In World of Tanks, you only have fake planes flying around that don't even have a hitbox and do fuck all instead of acting all pretty and stuff. And so there are way more smaller differences between the game that I could cover, but since I don't want to make this video 2 hours long, I'll leave those differences for you to discover yourself. So instead, let's continue on with the different game modes both games have to offer. Starting with World of Tanks, you basically only have one go-to game mode that will always be available for casual players apart from training rooms, which is random battles. Which is your standard World of Tanks 15 versus 15 battle with one of the many matchmaker templates that decide what vehicles you'll be fighting and from what tier, which can differ from time to time. That's also pretty much why it's called random battle. Hey, the more you know. Then there are also game modes that are only available for a limited amount of time, like for example the football game mode during the big football tournaments, and many other festive game modes like Halloween and April Fools. Also nowadays World of Tanks also offers the frontline game mode once per month, which is pretty much an upscaled version of the random battle with as the main objective to attack or defend certain artillery cannons. And lastly, if you happen to be in a World of Tanks clan, you also have the option to play strongholds or clan wars, which are, apart from some little details, the exact same as random battles, but with much bigger rewards. So let's see what War Thunder has to offer for game modes. And of course I'm only going to cover the ground forces game mode since the ones focused around other vehicles aren't that relevant for this video, of course. So first of all, War Thunder has not one but 3 different game modes ready for you to jump right into as a casual player, which are AB or arcade battles, which look and feel the most like a traditional World of Tanks battle, with markers indicating enemy and friendly players, for example. Then you have RB or realistic battles, which as the name implies tries to give you a realistic combat experience. This mode is basically the same as AB, except in RB there are no markers indicating enemies, which makes spotting enemy vehicles a whole lot harder. And at last you have SB or simulator battles, which step up the realism that RB offers up by another notch and tries, as the name implies, to simulate battles that really happened over the course of history. And of course the difficulty and the amount of experience each game mode requires goes up the more realistic you decide to go, which also shows in the RP or experience you get from actual playing the game modes, since you will get way more RP if you kill an enemy in simulator battles than if you would kill the exact same enemy in the exact same situations in an arcade battle, which is something I really like about the War Thunder game mode, since it stimulates the players to play the more realistic game modes in War Thunder as well. So overall, game mode wise, I personally gotta give this one to War Thunder, since they offer the most standardly accessible game modes, with a whole lot of different goals, concept, focus and rewards, while still being centered around tank combat. But on the other hand, I am a big fan of World of Tanks' frontline game mode as well. And just because Frontlines is sadly only available once a month, I gotta give this one to War Thunder. So with the overall gameplay and game modes covered, let's move on to the diversity and arrangements of vehicles in both games. And talking about diversity, World of Tanks doesn't even come close to the immense diversity in military vehicles War Thunder has to offer. Since in World of Tanks your only option is to play tanks and wannabe French race cars. While in War Thunder you can play tanks, planes, boats, helicopters and anti-air vehicles, with all types having different controls and weapon systems, from high caliber machine guns all the way to flipping guided missiles. This makes the overall gameplay War Thunder has to offer in certain game modes much more immersive and diverse, with all the different vehicles moving around at the same time. So now let's talk about how all these vehicles are categorized and ranked in both games. Starting with World of Tanks, where you have 5 different tank types. Light tanks, which have most of the times very little to non-armor and firepower, but instead have the best-in-class mobility, camo and spotting capabilities. Then you have heavy tanks, which have overall great armor and firepower, but most of the times lack mobility, camo and spotting capabilities, unless they're Russian. Medium tanks, which pretty much sits right in between lights and heavies, that has armor, firepower, mobility, camo, spotting capabilities quite decently even out, but doesn't even come close to light or heavy tank standards in any of these traits. They have tank destroyers, which is most of the times a big gun on wheels that lacks in every other aspect except the gun, and last but definitely not least, artillery, which is only in the game to annoy the crap out of normal players. So in World of Tanks all these types are ranked from tier 1 up until tier 10, with the tier 1 being the worst level where everyone starts out with, and tier 10 being the end of a so-called line of tanks inside the World of Tanks' tech tree, which is basically a collection of every free-to-play tank in the game, all unlocked by playing and collecting XP in a certain path with somewhat similar tanks inside them. Also, the tier level is the main factor that decides your matchmaking in World of Tanks, with a -2 or +2. This means that if you play a game in a tier 6 vehicle, you can fight against tier 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 vehicles, but never against tier 3 or tier 9 vehicles, for example. In War Thunder, it's kinda similar in some way, but also quite different. Starting with the War Thunder tank types, since War Thunder divides its tank also into 5 types, which are just like a World of Tanks: lights, heavies, mediums and tank destroyers, but instead of artillery, War Thunder has AA, or anti-air vehicles, specially made to counter the planes flying in the air. But with some creativity, they can also be quite effectively used against some other, more lightly armored enemies. Oh, wow, okay. Okay, fair enough. And of course, the planes and the boats also have different types, but since this video is about comparing World of Tanks to War Thunder, I'm gonna leave them out for now. So let's move on with how War Thunder arranged these vehicles. So instead of World of Tanks' tiers, in War Thunder they are called ranks. They basically act the same way as tiers, but instead of 1 to 10, War Thunder ranks only go from 1 to 7. But unlike World of Tanks, War Thunder's matchmaker completely ignores the tanks' rank when matching up tanks in battles, but instead uses a tank's battle rating, or BR in short. And a battle rating is basically another version of a tank's rank, but has, unlike the rank, a range from 1 till 10, just like the tiers in World of Tanks. And the battle rating a tank has is completely dependent on that particular tank, since in War Thunder the overall strength of vehicles within a certain rank can differ a lot. For example, in War Thunder the Tiger II with the 10.5 cm is a rank 5 tank, but the Mouse is also a rank 5 tank. But what distinguishes these vehicles from each other is the fact that the Tiger II with the 10.5 cm has a 6.7 battle rating and the Mouse has a 7.7 battle rating. And that is why the battle rating is so important in this game, since without it, a rank 5 Tiger II would face a rank 5 Mouse a whole lot more often. Which is of course no problem for the Mouse player, I suppose, but for the rank 5 Tiger II player, yeah, I guess that can be very frustrating indeed. But not only the ranking, but also the way you research and unlock higher ranked vehicles differs a bit from World of Tanks. Since in World of Tanks you have to follow a certain line if you want to get a certain tier 10 tank. In War Thunder this is not really necessary, and you can basically collect XP for a tank with every other tank you own from that particular nation. And in order to move up a rank in War Thunder, you simply need to unlock 5 vehicles from the previous rank. But in order to progress in battle rating within a certain rank, you do actually need to fire a specific line within that rank. I hope that wasn't too complicated yet, because oh boy, it's about to get even worse. Anyways, now you guys know how both games categorize and rank their vehicles, let's talk about how much effort and how much time it actually takes to reach a top tier or top rank vehicle in both games. And little spoiler, the grind for both games is pretty damn long if you compare it to normal story-based adventure games. So if you're a casual gamer who just plays video games only a couple of hours a week, then expect that you're most likely not gonna unlock a tier 10 or rank 7 vehicle in the course of the next half year. But how long does it actually take for you to unlock a top tier or top rank vehicle exactly? Well, let's calculate that for you. So let's start off with World of Tanks, and let's take the Leopard 1 line for example. So if you want to research yourself the tier 10 Leopard 1, and if you would have gone from the tier 1 LOL tractor all the way up to the tier 10 Leopard 1 through the fastest route possible, which means that you only research the necessary modules in order to progress up the line, which I do not recommend by the way, it would cost you roughly 775,000 XP to research the Leopard 1. And if you're an average player without a premium account, you'll be able to rack up about 500 to 600 XP per battle on average, which means that it will take you approximately 1,550 battles to research the Leopard 1. And with an average World of Tanks battle being up around 6 minutes long, that means that it would take you a total of 155 hours of non-stop playing in order to unlock the Leopard 1. And if you're a casual gamer that only plays, let's say, 2 hours every day, it would take you about 78 days to unlock the tier 10 Leopard 1. And then I didn't even include the ridiculous amount of credits that you would need to purchase everything. So overall, if your goal is to unlock every tier 10 tank in World of Tanks, which are 49 free to unlock tier 10 tanks, you have a very long way to go. But is War Thunder worse, or does it offer a quicker grind? Well, unfortunately, I can't calculate it out the same way as I did with World of Tanks, since the grinds in War Thunder are way more complicated to calculate than World of Tanks' grind. But I can assure you that the grind to the top in War Thunder is much longer. And this has mainly to do with the fact that you have to research not only 1 tank per rank, but 5 tanks per rank in order to progress up 1 rank. So just imagine for yourself that in order to get to the top of War Thunder, it's going to take you a minimal of 5 times longer than in World of Tanks. And most likely much longer than that. So summarized, if you want a game that will keep you busy for many more years to come, then World of Tanks as well as War Thunder will do just the trick for you. With War Thunder doing it even a little bit better. Not only because the grinds take much longer in War Thunder, but also because War Thunder has way more vehicles for you to research than World of Tanks. And then I'm still excluding War Thunder's planes, boats and helicopters. But on the other hand, if you're playing a game because you want to complete it as fast as possible, then playing World of Tanks would save you a whole lot of time. And don't even get close to War Thunder, since that game will pretty much keep you busy for a whole lot more years to come. So now with that out of the way, let's move on to the final and probably the most controversial topic of this video, which is the influence of real life money on World of Tanks and War Thunder. So before fanboys of either game are gonna go ham in the comment section and call the opposing game sellouts or whatever, let me just get one thing straight. Both games are in fact free-to-play games. And since free-to-play games need to earn money somehow in order to pay for their developers and such, they simply have to add some ways to spend real money on their games. Otherwise, they would simply cease to exist in the next month when the money runs out. So again, both games have their some different ways of implementing the use of real money. But there's actually one main factor where both games aim the real cash at, and that is progress. Since in both games you actually have the ability to use their real-world money equivalent currency to convert your overall gathered XP into free XP, which you can use to speed up your grind and overall progress in the game. And since, as covered in the previous topic, these games take ages to complete, this is actually a very good way of monetizing your game, of course. So the next real money feature both games have is the ability to get your hands on special vehicles that are exclusively available for people who pay real money for it, so-called premium vehicles. And what mainly makes these vehicles stand out from normal free-to-unlock vehicles is the fact that they earn way more in-game currency per battle. And also, some specific premium vehicles are better than their standard free-to-unlock vehicle that they are the closest related to. Of course, to trigger people into spending their money onto it, which is a smart trick, of course, to stack up some cash in the short run, but in World of Tanks and as well as War Thunder, I do notice a negative impact on the regular battles I play encountering these particular more powerful premium tanks in my normal free-to-unlock vehicles, which might have a negative influence on the overall gameplays in the long run. Then the last significant real-world money feature both games offer is the ability for you to buy so-called premium account time. This is basically an in-game subscription that once activated gives you a set bonus of 50% on all credits and XP or RP you earn during your premium time. Pretty much a pay to progress, which I'm personally fine with since it doesn't bother other players that much, unlike the particular better than average premium vehicles both games offer, and something rather annoying about World of Tanks in particular. Probably every World of Tanks player saw this one coming miles ahead. It's of course the World of Tanks' premium ammo system. What does this mean? Well, simply said, World of Tanks has two ammunition types. a tank's normal ammo type that doesn't break the bank while firing it, for example AP and HE ammo most of the times, and a tank's premium ammo type that is simply 99.5% of the times flat out better than the tank's regular cheap ammunition type, but also costs 10 times as much. And this is basically done to stimulate players to keep paying a whole lot more real life money in order to like keep living their so-called gameplay style of firing a lot of premium rounds. And I know this can be rather confusing for non-World of Tanks players, but simply imagine this: you basically pay real life money in order to make your particular version of an existing tank much better than, for example, someone else's version of that particular tank, which is exact the same, except that person is not firing premium ammunition. And this is actually a thing that I haven't come across in War Thunder yet, and that is mainly why I prefer War Thunder's monetization system over World of Tanks'. And of course there are much more ways to spend your real money on other smaller things in both games, but I decided to only cover the biggest ones since, again, I don't want to make this video like 2 hours long, which it probably already almost is. You know what, it's actually time to go to the final bit of the video, which is the bit where some cheeky little buggers at the start actually skipped onto. Oh, hello, by the way. You missed a lot, so just rewind the video, because there's free gold in this video. No, I'm sorry, I'm just kidding. Anyways, it's the overall conclusion of this video. So all in all, as I stated in the intro, the best game for you is highly dependent on the type of person you are and where your preferences lay. So are you a casual gamer that likes an action-packed tank game with aspects found in other arcade games as well, such as, for example, hit points, then by all means go for World of Tanks. But if you're a true World War II fanatic and realism is the #1 priority in a tank game for you, then by all means go for War Thunder. But for me, I'm personally enjoying War Thunder a little bit more than World of Tanks at the moment, but that might also be because I'm a little bit burnt out at the World of Tanks, since I've been playing that game literally since forever. So please use this video to decide for yourself what game is the perfect one for you, and just don't follow blindly what I do. And then I'm pretty sure that you will find the best tank game that fits all your wishes and expectations. So guys, that pretty much wraps up the entire comparison video. So if you enjoyed it or found it useful, then please consider dropping a like. That would be very much appreciated. Also, if you're new to the channel and you like my videos, make sure to smash that subscribe button so you will stay up to date with all my future content. And also, let me know in the comments down below what game you prefer and why. I'm very curious on your opinions as well. But for now, all that's left for me to say is, as always, have an awesome day, and I'll catch you guys later.
Jack it up.